The scent of stale coffee and desperation hung heavy in the air. Richard Sterling, CEO of a company built on steel and ambition, stood in the center of the conference room, his face a mask of controlled panic. In 10 minutes, the most powerful Japanese delegation in the world would walk through that door, ready to sign a contract worth $300 million. But their lead negotiator, Mr. Tanaka, a man known for his rigid adherence to protocol, had just called. He had a sudden, severe allergy to peanuts, a last-minute menu change that Richard's assistant had overlooked. Now the carefully planned 5-course meal was a threat, a culinary landmine. Mr. Tanaka had insisted on a full review of every ingredient, a task that required flawless, fluent Japanese. But the company's only translator had just quit, leaving Richard with no way to communicate. Every second was a hammer blow. The deal, the company, his legacy, all of it teetered on the edge of a small, unforgivable mistake. Richard loosened his tie, his throat tight with a fear he hadn't felt since he was a young man. Just then, a soft voice from the corner of the room cut through the panic. "Excuse me, Mr. Sterling," it said, "but I speak fluent Japanese." All eyes turned to Aaron Miller, a 16-year-old busboy in a stained white shirt and black trousers, a bus tub full of dirty dishes still in his hands. The air went still. No one had ever noticed him before. He was a ghost in the vast, impersonal dining halls. "You speak Japanese?" Richard asked, his voice thick with skepticism and a hint of something he didn't want to admit. Hope. The boy, who had been invisible just moments before, nodded calmly. His gaze was steady, his voice devoid of a single tremble. He didn't know it yet, but he was about to step into a world that would see him not as an employee, but as an enemy, a world that would demand he pay the ultimate price for his talent. Aaron's life was a world of hushed movements and unspoken rules. He moved through the corporate building like a phantom, a shadow in the corners of grand dining halls, a blur carrying plates. He had worked at the Sterling Tower for a year, a job he'd been so proud to get. It was meant to be a stepping stone, a way to save for college, for a degree in computer science. He had dreams, big, audacious dreams. He spent his nights coding on an old laptop, the screen flickering like a dying firefly. He taught himself Japanese through online courses and library books. It was a secret passion, a world of complex characters and beautiful, intricate logic. It was his escape. His mind was a labyrinth, a place where he could build, where he could create, a place where the color of his skin didn't define him. He was a son, a big brother, a quiet hero to his little sister Mia. He had a scholarship, application to Stanford sitting on his desk at home, ready to be sent. He just needed a little more money for the application fee. He worked the night shift, sometimes until the sky turned pale and gray. He'd clean the corporate dining halls, the remnants of powerful people's meals still on the tables. The leftover conversations hung in the air like a fog. He was a student of their world. He was learning how it worked. He didn't know it then, but someone else was watching him. A woman named Evelyn, an ambitious executive with a cold, calculating smile. She had noticed how he moved, how he never spoke, how he always seemed to be listening. She didn't see a talented young man. She saw a threat, a loose end, a disruption. She had a list of her own, a list of people who were unfit for the company culture, people who didn't fit in, people who made her feel uncomfortable. Aaron didn't know his name was already on it. He went home that night, exhausted but hopeful. The next morning, he would drop his application in the mail. He didn't know this was the last day his life would feel like his own. The Japanese delegation arrived. Richard Sterling's heart pounded. Aaron, now wearing a borrowed suit that was 2 sizes too big, stood beside him. The executives looked at the young busboy with a mixture of confusion and contempt. They had no idea what was about to happen. Aaron began to speak. The words flowed from his lips with a natural, authoritative cadence. He translated every nuance. The formal greetings, the subtle jokes. The deal was a symphony. The Japanese executives, Mr. Tanaka especially, were stunned. They were impressed by Aaron's poise, his dignity, the effortless way he navigated the language and the complex business etiquette. The meeting was a stunning success. The contract was signed. The entire room erupted in applause. Richard Sterling was ecstatic. He had a new hero. But as he turned to thank Aaron, he saw Evelyn standing in the doorway, a chillingly empty expression on her face. Her eyes were fixed on Aaron. The praise felt hollow. It felt like a trap. The next day, Aaron was called into Richard Sterling's office. "Aaron, that was remarkable," Richard said. "You saved the company." He offered Aaron a new position, a part-time translator, more money, an opportunity to work on his own schedule. Aaron was overjoyed. He accepted. He felt like his dreams were coming true. That night he bought the stamps for his Stanford application. He was so close. He was almost there. But that week, a series of small, unsettling events began. First, his old busboy schedule was cut. He was given fewer hours. Then, a new translator was hired, a young woman from Japan. She was fluent, but she lacked Aaron's natural intuition. She stumbled over idioms. She missed the cultural cues. The Japanese delegation, which had been so impressed with Aaron, began to express their disappointment. They kept asking for Aaron. But he was always busy. He was always in a different part of the building. He felt like he was being pushed away. He knew it wasn't an accident. He felt the cold touch of suspicion. He saw Evelyn's face everywhere, in the background of meetings, watching him from across the hall. The final blow came on a Friday. He received a call from the Stanford admissions office. His application was being reviewed. They had a few questions. He was excited. He was nervous. He was on the verge of his dream. They asked him about his extracurriculars, about his work history. He told them about his job at the Sterling Tower. He talked about his passion for Japanese culture. The woman on the phone was silent for a moment. Her voice was cold when she spoke again. "Mr. Miller, we have received a report from your employer. They said you have a pattern of insubordination. They said you were difficult to work with." Aaron was speechless. "That's not true," he said. The woman didn't respond. The line went dead. The injustice was a physical blow. He felt like a fool. He had trusted them. He had believed them. He had given them his talent. He had given them his heart. And they had used it to break him. He went home that night. He didn't even bother to open his laptop. He just sat there, in the silence. The dream was gone. The truth was a bullet. It was delivered in a meeting, a month after his Stanford application was rejected. Richard Sterling called him in. "Aaron," he said, "I'm sorry, but we have to let you go." Aaron felt a cold rage. "Why?" he asked. "Was it about Stanford?" Richard looked away. "I have no idea what you're talking about," he said. "This is a business decision. The Japanese delegation said you're no longer needed. We have a new translator." The lie hung in the air, heavy and putrid. Aaron's mind went back to Evelyn, the cold stare, the calculated smile. He realized with a sickening certainty that she was behind it all. She had ruined his future. She had taken away his dreams. He had to expose her. He had to fight back. He went home that night and went back to work on his laptop. He wasn't a hero anymore. He was a man with a vendetta. He started digging. He hacked into the company servers. He used the skills he had, learned in the library, the knowledge he had so meticulously collected. He was a hacker now, a ghost in the machine. He discovered everything, Evelyn's entire web of lies. Her fabricated reports, her manipulation of data, her secret communications with the new translator. He found the email to Stanford, the one that destroyed his life. It was a cold, brutal document. It described him as unprofessional, insubordinate, a cultural misfit. He felt a searing pain. He wanted to rage. He wanted to scream. But he didn't. He just kept working. He collected everything. The emails, the files, the data logs. It was a masterpiece of evidence. He knew what he had to do. He had to go to the board. He had to expose her. The meeting was set for the next day, a small, intimate gathering with Richard and the two senior partners. He felt a quiet calm. He was ready. He had his evidence. He had his truth. He had his revenge. He didn't know that Evelyn was also preparing for the meeting. She had been watching him. She had been waiting for him to make a move. She was a master strategist. She was one step ahead. The meeting was a showdown. Aaron, dressed in the same borrowed suit, laid out his evidence, the emails, the reports, the lies. Richard and the two partners looked at the screen, their faces a mixture of shock and disbelief. Aaron felt a sense of vindication. He had won. He had exposed her. He had his life back. That's when Evelyn walked in. She wasn't supposed to be there. She was supposed to be a spectator, a ghost in the background. But she wasn't. She was there to deliver the final blow. She smiled, a cold, empty smile. "I'm so glad we're all here," she said. "I have something to add." She held up a USB drive. "I've been keeping an eye on Aaron," she said, "for weeks. I knew he was up to something." She plugged the drive into the projector. The first thing that appeared on the screen was a security camera recording. It was a shot of Aaron in his busboy uniform, a hoodie on his head. He was standing at a desk, a hand outstretched. He was trying to steal a document. The image was grainy. The angle was bad. But it was unmistakable. It was him. Or it was supposed to be. "I knew he was a thief," Evelyn said. "I knew he would try to sabotage the company." The next image was a shot of Aaron's computer, a screenshot of his coding projects. The titles were a damning list of crimes. How to hack a server. How to hide your tracks. How to delete evidence. The files were all named in Japanese. The board members looked at Aaron, their faces now a mixture of contempt and disgust. The truth didn't matter. The evidence was overwhelming. It was a cold, brutal, and utterly devastating lie. Aaron's heart sank. He knew that he had lost. Evelyn had prepared a false case against him. She had covered her tracks. She had won. The story of Aaron Miller isn't about a boy who overcame adversity. It's about a boy whose life was stolen. It's about a system that doesn't just judge, but preys on the innocent. It's about a world that sees a black boy with talent and decides not to nurture it, but to break it. To prove that his dreams were never his to begin with. The silence that followed was 1,000 times louder than any accusation. It was the sound of a future that never was, a life that could have been, a potential that was snuffed out before. It had a chance to shine. And the question remains, if a system designed to protect can be used to destroy a young man with nothing but a dream, what hope is there for anyone else?